Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Today, I want to share a personal story titled, How a Dumb Joke at a Work Party Turned My Marriage Upside Down. It's a roller coaster of emotions, so buckle up and let's dive right in. My name is Danielle, I'm 32 years old, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. This is the story of how a simple joke at a work party completely shattered my marriage. Last Friday, my 37-year-old husband, Troy, invited me to his company's end-of-year party. Honestly, I wasn't very excited to go. These corporate events are always awkward, and I never know what to say to his coworkers. But Troy insisted it was necessary, and that it would look good on him if I attended. So, I agreed to play the supportive wife for one night. I spent extra time doing my hair and makeup, put on the green dress he likes, and tried to look as put together as possible. When we arrived, I knew it was going to be one of those nights where all I could do was smile and nod. The first hour went well. We mingled and played How Do You Know Troy? I maintained my best demeanor throughout the conversations with his coworkers. I had one drink, then another, and by the time dinner arrived, I was starting to feel a bit more relaxed. Then Troy arrived with his boss, Mr. Rick. Troy constantly complains about Mr. Rick at home, saying he's always on his back and never satisfied with what he does. I had pictured Mr. Rick as a grumpy, gray-haired micromanager, but he was surprisingly young, maybe in his late 40s, dressed sharply, and commanding the room effortlessly. I could immediately see why Troy was always concerned about him. We were all sitting around this big round table, me, Troy, his boss, and a few other coworkers, laughing and talking about holiday plans. The conversation turned to football. Troy is a die-hard Cowboys fan. He lives and breathes it. Mr. Rick, on the other hand, is an Eagles fan. If you know anything about football, you know Cowboys and Eagles fans do not get along. They were going back and forth, looking like they were having fun, but also treading on thin ice. I could tell Troy was getting that look, the one he gives when he's losing an argument but refuses to admit it. That's when I did it. I leaned forward, grinned, and said, "Well, if you spent as much time at home as you do defending the Cowboys, maybe you'd win something for once." The table fell silent. Even I felt it, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Mr. Rick let out a loud, "Ha!" slapped the table and said, "I like her. She has a point." But Troy didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. He just sat back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the table as if he were counting to 10 in his head. I knew I should have stopped there, but it wasn't me. I had to double down. "Maybe if you put that much effort into our finances, we wouldn't be fighting over the cable bill every month," I added with a snicker, thinking I was being cute. Crickets. His boss just sipped his drink, and one of his coworkers gave me an awkward, yikes smile. I felt Troy's knee bump mine, his little shut up signal. I ignored it and said, "Don't look at me like that." Tilting my head at him as if he were acting dramatic, I added, "I am just joking. You understand, I'm joking." But Troy wasn't having it. "No, Danielle," he replied quietly, his voice low but sharp, like a blade. "You're doing too much." I could feel myself getting frustrated. "I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than it is," I said. "But if you really think I'm replaceable, then why are we even together? I want to know where your head's at because this doesn't feel right." That's when he hit me with it. He crossed his arms, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Honestly? Yeah, I've thought about it. There are better guys out there, but I'm with you because I love you. That should be enough." I just stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. Better guys out there? He was basically telling me he was settling for me, like I was some kind of consolation prize. "So, let me get this straight," I said finally. "You think you're settling for me? But I should just be okay with that because you love me? Is that what you're saying?" I asked. He shrugged. "Yeah, I guess. Look, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I'm just being honest." That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't just a one-time comment or a bad joke. It was how he actually felt. He didn't value me or our relationship. "I think we're done," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. His eyes widened, like he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Wait, what? You're breaking up with me over this?" "Yeah," I said. "If you think I'm so replaceable, then go find one of those better guys you were talking about. I'm not going to stay in a relationship where I'm not valued. that's when the yelling started. He called me dramatic, selfish, ungrateful, basically throwing every insult he could think of. He even tried to turn it around on me, saying I was throwing him away after everything we'd been through. I didn't engage. I just told him he needed to move out. I reminded him that this was my house and that I'd been paying for everything while he focused on school. He tried to argue, saying he had nowhere to go, but I stood firm. I told him he had until the end of the week to pack his stuff and leave. At one point, he started crying, saying he couldn't believe I was doing this to him, but even then, it didn't feel genuine. It felt like he was more upset about losing his safety net than losing me. The rest of the night was tense. He slammed doors, muttered things under his breath, and avoided me as much as possible. I stayed in the bedroom while he stayed in the living room, and by the next morning, he was already packing his things. It wasn't easy. Part of me felt guilty, like maybe I was overreacting or being too harsh, but the other part of me knew I was doing the right thing. I couldn't stay in a relationship where I was seen as good enough for now. By the end of the week, he was gone. I thought I'd feel a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted, but instead, I just felt numb. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to settle for someone who thought I was replaceable.